Hey there, guys. All right, today we are on to week 46 of World War II, July 13th, 1940. The Dictator of France, the rise of Philippe Pétain. Now, before we dive in, again, I'm going to make the disclaimer I am still very clearly sick, if you could not tell by the sound of my voice. It gets a bit nasally, I don't know. Hopefully, I've been coughing a bit more this morning than I did the other day, so hopefully it's not too annoying. I will try my best to contain it and not have it get picked up on the mic, but we shall see. And I might sneeze right off the bat. Yep, I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Where am I? Anyways, with the sneezing done, the intro done, let's go ahead and dive right in.
Aluminum. What? Aluminium.
No, aluminum.
We'll see.
The British way of saying it is stupid.
July 13th, 1940. The Battle of France ended a few weeks ago, and now begins the Battle of Britain.
Dun 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 dun. Dun.
I'm Indy Nidell. This is World War II. Last week, the Italians began a campaign in the Sudan. Romania got a new pro-Axis government, and the big news was the British Royal Navy attacking French ships at Mers el Kabir. This was done, however, to keep those ships out of German hands. Britain has a very real worry that Germany is soon to attack, a worry made more concrete as Germany occupied the Channel Islands. The British officially recognized the beginning of the Battle of Britain as July 10th, 1940, though there is debate over that specific date. And there had been small-scale probing attacks going on for weeks. Whichever date you want to choose, on the 10th, 120 German fighters and bombers attack a shipping convoy in the Channel, while 70 bomb dockyards in South Wales. Cardiff is bombed the 10th and 12th, and on the 12th there are Luftwaffe raids also on Scotland and Northern Ireland. The Kanalkampf, the Channel Battle, begins now. This is a series of bomber raids against Britain's southern coastal towns, Dover, Plymouth, Portsmouth, and shipping convoys when they can be intercepted. That day, Hitler outlines his reasoning here. Aerial domination over the planned invasion area and its sea approaches is necessary to compensate for the weakness of his Kriegsmarine, the German Navy compared to the Royal Navy. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill says the 8th, that if Hitler is repulsed here or does not try invasion, he will recoil eastward, and we have nothing to stop him. But there is one thing that will bring him back and bring him down, and that is an absolutely devastating, exterminating attack by very heavy bombers from this country on the Nazi homeland. That may be so, but for the near future, Britain will have to play defense. High Command thinks they need at least 1,000 fighters for any kind of security, which they do not nearly have. So they begin a campaign with the public. The Ministry of Aircraft Production proclaims, "We will turn your pots and pans into Spitfires and Hurricanes, Blenheims and Wellingtons. Everyone who has pots and pans, kettles, vacuum cleaners, hat pegs, coat hangers, shoe trees, bathroom fittings and household ornaments, cigarette boxes, or any other articles made wholly or in part of aluminum should hand them over at once." And please do not comment about aluminum or aluminium. I'm well aware that one usage or another bothers people. However, Humphrey Davy, who in 1808 first identified the metal in alum, called it alumium, and then aluminum in 1812.
Correct way.
Aluminium was soon also adopted so that it was the same form as the other ium elements, radium, sodium, for example. Though from 1825, Webster's dictionary used aluminum. The IUPAC, International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, who set global standards for chemical names and units, says both are acceptable. I know some of you are going to comment anyhow, but no one here will answer any comments about this, will we, right? Nobody will. Nobody will. Anyhow, to defend against the Luftwaffe,
Funny,
it will be ideal
thing.
if you know where their planes are. So Britain is running tests for AI Mark IV radar this month. This is the first production air-to-air radar system. Airborne interception, that's the AI, radar, has been a thing since 1936 when Royal Air Force research scientists moved into Bawdsey Manor in Suffolk to try to figure out how to get a radar system aboard an airplane. See, for maximum warning time of enemy aircraft, radar stations were right on the British coastline, but they can only see incoming targets in front of them, like over the channel. Hugh Dowding, head of RAF Fighter Command, created the Dowding system, which centrally networked the local observation posts with the radar centers through the phone lines. At the RAF station Bentley Priory, people would plot the provided coordinates on a big map, correlating multiple reports of a single target, right? Phone operators would then send the info on to group headquarters, who sent it further on to local headquarters for the fighter pilots, who would go out and deal with the invaders. This was all about early detection and rapid dissemination of information. There were some issues. Of course, there were delays between centers and there was occasionally plotting inaccuracy, but it was still mostly accurate down to around 8 kilometers. From there, though, fighters could visually spot their targets most of the time. But that doesn't work at night. So once an enemy had crossed the coast and he couldn't be picked up by radar, unless it was a bright night and a pilot was lucky, he couldn't be picked up visually either. But if you maybe had radar on board an actual plane, then it could cover the gap between the system's 8 kilometer or so accuracy and the visual range of a couple hundred meters. But antennae back then were too large for the planes, and transmitters were both big and fragile. A first system, tried in 1937, could pick up aircraft up to around 1.6 kilometers away, but that's still not good enough. Thing is, that system worked better over water, and since they noticed it picked up things like wharves and cranes, it could also pick up the large vertical sides of seagoing vessels at up to nearly 5 kilometers, which led to a split in research between AI radar and AS, air-to-surface radar. Mark I ASR has now been in service.
This is a learning episode. This is very much not a... I'm guessing this is a quiet week for World War II. Oh boy.
Since earlier this year.
So we're just learning about technology right now.
Back to AIR research, which was stepped up last year. There was a real problem because the transmitter signal would not quickly cut off. So the receiver kept ringing, and while it was dying down, you couldn't pick up the reflections from nearby aircraft over the noise. EMI, yes, the record company EMI, found the solution in a new transmitter, a self-quenching or squegging oscillator that fired pulses set by a timer. The timer muted the receiver, and bingo, the ringing is gone, minimum range is down to 400 feet, that's like 130 meters, and the airborne interception Mark IV radar is now in production and will be delivered to the soon-to-arrive Bristol Beaufighter planes, and thus endeth the technology lecture for today. This is all to say, though, that at the moment, Britain does not have an effective night defense against incoming aircraft. Britain does, however, have an extremely large and effective navy, and British and Australian ships engaged the Italians July 9th at the Battle of Calabria. This involves over 50 ships total and is indecisive, though the Italian battleship Giulio Cesare is badly damaged by the warspite by one of the longest-range artillery hits, 24 kilometers, in history, and holds up in Messina Harbor. The Italian convoy ships making for Benghazi, the reason for this attack in the first place, make it through safely. In other Mediterranean naval news, on the 7th, French Admiral Geoffroy agrees to neutralize his ships at Alexandria, a battleship, 3 heavy cruisers, 1 light cruiser, 3 destroyers, and a sub. But at Casablanca and Dakar, the Navy is loyal to Vichy, France, so British torpedo boats and torpedo planes put the battleships Richelieu and Jean Bart out of action. Speaking of Vichy, it is very much in the news this week. On the 9th, the French government gathers there, the provisional French capital. Pierre Laval and Raphael Alibert urged the Senate and Chamber of Deputies to approve Alibert's proposition Révolution Nationale, which has 3 constitutional acts. 1, making the hugely popular current Prime Minister and Marshal of France, Philippe Pétain, head of state and taking over the functions of the French state. 2, giving the head of state, Pétain, complete executive and legislative power. And
Lovely.
3, adjourning the Senate and Chamber of Deputies and only allowing them to reconvene at order of the head of state. Pétain also has...
So you want people, the Senate, to give up their jobs.
the right to designate his successor. On the 10th, the Senate and Chamber vote 569 to 80 to approve these acts.
Oh,
Pétain
okay.
signs them into law. From what I understand, most of those voting do not think that democracy is to disappear from France. Many just think they'll be getting a new constitution. Laval.
Did they not read it? It literally says, give him the authority, like essentially supreme authority. And also, he decides when the Senate reconvenes. Did they not read?
Had said last week, though, that democracy had lost the war, and what was needed now was an authoritarian national regime. Well, those who voted against are known as the Vichy 80. 27 deputies are absent for the vote, having left for Algiers in June on the ship Massilia. They are known as the Massilia absentees. This is very much a time of flux and crisis for war-torn France, but it is also a time of crisis for war-torn China.
I feel like it's a time of crisis for the entire world.
July 12th, Britain officially agrees to close the Burma Road. The French Indochina route has been closed since June 19th, so both of the major overland supply routes to the Chinese nationalists are now closed. The USSR is toying with the idea of a non-aggression pact with Japan, and Chinese nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek worries they may go even farther and side with the Axis. Japan occupying French Indochina may also be in the cards. In meetings between the 1st and the 7th, the Chinese nationalist leadership meets. They are trying to sort out their volatile alliance with the Chinese communists. There is a July 2nd proposal to reorganize the communist forces and put them on government pay, provided they agree to government inspections, and also to focus them in Hubei and Shaanxi provinces, which is where the Japanese are currently also most focused. The communists reject this proposal, but reaffirm the United Front in a manifesto stating, "At present, China faces unprecedented danger of capitulation and unprecedented difficulties in resistance. The danger of civil war must be eradicated. The anti-Japanese United Front must be consolidated." And I'll end the week there. A week with action in the sky over Britain, action at sea in the Mediterranean, and Pétain given a whole lot of power in Vichy France. Over 40 nations, including the US, China, and Canada, will officially recognize the Vichy government as the legitimate government of France. As for the two men who really orchestrated and pushed this week's vote, Pierre Laval becomes vice president, and Raphael Alibert becomes keeper of seals and minister of justice in Pétain's new cabinet. The French national motto, Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, Liberty, Equality, Brotherhood, is replaced by Travail, Famille, Patrie, work, family, fatherland.
Ooh.
There are those who note that TFP also stands for the criminal punishment Travaux forcés à perpétuité, forced labor in perpetuity.
Oh. More fucked up.
That is all for today, ladies and gentlemen. But since Pétain has just come to power, if you'd like to see a video about someone else's rise to power, check out our Between Two Wars episode about the rise of Joseph Stalin.
And that was week 46 of World War II, July 13th, 1940. The Dictator of France, the rise of Philippe Pétain. It was a decent episode. I think it was probably the weakest one so far because it was pretty much just a lecture on radio technology on planes. So it was kind of boring. An unexciting week of World War II, which, I mean, not exciting. Feels weird to say put the word exciting next to World War II. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.